Welcome back to the Isaac Abrams Show, everybody. I'm your host, Isaac Abrams. Today's very special guest. I forgot the order you just told me. Director, actor, writer,
perfect,
producer,
philanthropist.
Luke Barnett's here, everybody. How you doing, Luke?
I'm good, man. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too. In this episode, we break down it's inside baseball on the film business. The whole time, Luke is riding his overnight success in the film business of being here for 20 years, making films and television and acting and doing great stuff. We know each other from back in his bartending days, which were probably my production assistant days 15, 20 years ago. So we had a great catch-up. And we have some other things that we may work on together that we talked about off camera. So you'll never hear about that. Luke, thank you for being here.
Glad to be here, man.
Enjoy the episode, everybody. We will see you next time. Luke Barnett.
We're here.
We are here.
We did it, man.
An interesting thing that I was thinking about, and I want to empower you to be as honest as possible.
Great.
Is what your impression overall of me is, because I'll give the audience a backstory.
Okay.
Most of our first interactions were me sitting faced blackout drunk on your bar stool at your bar, being an asshole to you and our friends.
Well, the best part of that, though, is I was probably shit-faced behind the bar, being just as much of an asshole back. So
I had no idea.
I think we're in a good place.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's the fun of working at. I mean, granted, I have moments now where I genuinely miss bartending, like really do, and specifically like at a bar like that, and not just because you could like drink behind the bar, but it was just like there's no other job where you're essentially getting paid to like hang out with buddies and like genuinely have a good time. Like, granted, there's negatives to it. I don't want to do it again. I don't want to work till 3 a.m. again. But at the time, it was like a very fun. I have no like regrets about a decade of bartending. Yeah,
and from an acting standpoint, it allows your days to be free to do auditions. I mean, it's a great gig if you can get it, which is why there's a line out the door.
Totally. And I had my impression of you was great. No, because I think it was like you were very similar to like most of my degenerate friends that would come in there. You know what I mean? Come in with Misty and she says hi, by the way. Oh man, yeah, good. She's doing a lot of good in the world right now. I see on
She
Instagram.
really is. We could spend our whole hour talking about what she's doing for the fires right now.
Totally. But we're here doing the important work.
Right. Promoting stuff.
Yeah,
making content for the internet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're healing them.
We are. Hopefully this is entertaining to someone who's doing some good.
Yeah.
Have you been back to No Bar in a while?
I don't go as often because I got 2 small kids who wake up at 6 a.m. I actually did go to No Bar recently. Like I love when a neighborhood bar is decked out for Christmas.
Yes.
I just love the vibe of like old school Christmas lights. It's warm, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I made it a point to go visit Paul, like the owner of the bar, maybe a week before Christmas, and it was just nice.
I went within the last 6 months. I was just in the Valley for something.
Yeah.
And I saw the back patio for the first time.
Oh, it's great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, where was that?
Where was that, dude? You're telling me as somebody who worked there. I'm like, where was this 10 years ago?
As a smoker.
Yeah, totally.
As a former smoker. I'm 16 days quit.
Okay,
into the new year.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I went back and it's one of those rare things. That and another bar that I worked at that had the same owners, the Woods on La Brea.
Yeah.
Both of those places, whenever I go back, I 100% like re-fall in love with it a little bit. It's just like my perfect vibe. It's like that's my perfect dive bar vibe, where it's nice enough that you like could go on a date there, but it's also not fancy. It's just like comfortable.
The Woods is where I reacquainted with my current girlfriend now.
I met my wife at the Woods.
After 16 years, we dated.
No shit.
First girlfriend in LA. She just hits me up out of nowhere. We re-meet up. I'm on my way home from work. I'm in like cargo shorts and a sun shirt. I've been shooting in the desert all day.
Wow.
And I warned her. I was like, look, I smell.
Yeah.
And we met up there and been together ever since.
Dude, met my wife at the Woods 16 years ago.
Wow.
Not a joke. So who knows?
That's awesome. That whole string, I don't know if they're all connected or were connected at some time, but like the fifth.
They all were. They all had like the same owner, this guy, Craig Traeger, who to me was like the epitome of the perfect LA bar owner. Like all of his spots had that same sort of feeling, you know. He passed away sadly like 5 years ago. And they all kind of got separated a little bit, but yeah, started by the same guy, all very much have the same MO of like you go in and people are going to know your name and your drink order, you know. It's good.
Yeah.
Good bar.
Like
good
little dive bar versions of Cheers. all over
like
town.
Hollywood Cheers. You know what I mean?
And no matter what zone, I mean, this is super inside LA,
Sure,
old school, but that's who listens to the show anyway.
Have you been okay? You might have been out here long enough. The very first one of their bars, which was the very first bar I ever worked at, was Daddy's. Have you ever been to Daddy's?
No, where was it?
Daddy's was on Vine. On Vine, and it got bulldozed to put the W Hotel. But it was like an eminent domain thing where the city kind of came in and just said, "We're going to put the W Hotel here."
Here's $5.
Exactly,
You're
but
out.
that was actually the epitome of like the coolest Hollywood dive bar. Like just Hollywood enough, but like people could come in and not get shit faced because like nobody cared. You know what I mean? It was like the opposite of like the clubs. You know, it's great.
Yeah. What's that
Great
one
first
just
job.
up from the W? That's across from the down from the bowl, the Lighthouse.
I don't know that one. The Lighthouse.
It's I'm not getting the name right.
Yeah.
The Powerhouse.
A Powerhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Staple.
Yeah.
LA staple.
And of course now, I mean, you can't start a new dive bar in LA. It's too expensive.
Yeah, it's too expensive. I mean, even you talked about the patio at No Bar, dude. Ask that guy about the process of getting his patio from like COVID, kind of fake patio, to the exact same property and space being a official patio.
Permits and stuff.
I don't know how people do it. You know, if that bar hadn't been there already for 20 years, I don't know how you do it in LA. It's crazy.
The vibes, they are a changing here.
The vibes, they are changing.
Or are we growing up? I don't know. It could be. I mean, it's different. It's been 20 years since we were doing the.
Yeah.
But now we're making films.
Now we're making films.
We're doing film
Doing
stuff.
stuff, dude.
Yeah. So what I'd love to talk to you about. I'm sure you've done other podcasts since the Crossing Over Express came out, or maybe you haven't.
I've done a couple like actor. They're like more actory.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your story leading up to that explosive success. You've had other wins before.
Yeah. Not like that, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, wins for sure.
sure. We got, as far as features go, we got Fear Inc. and we have Faith Based,
Mm-hmm.
right? Am I missing one as far as full lengths?
No, that's it for features.
And
Yeah.
you wrote both of those.
Wrote both those. Produced them. Starred in one of them. Yeah, it's. I think the thing about like this industry, which is forever, all of it, whether you're a comic or a writer or a director, anything like that, it's. If I've only learned one thing over the course of almost 20 years, it's you got to celebrate every win because there's just there's so many there's so many losses, which is just the game, that when you have even the smallest victory, it's like you got to celebrate it, you got to like embrace it because they're all gonna like hopefully lead to like potential next things, even if it doesn't feel that way at the time,
Right.
because I've had and you never know too. It's like I've had plenty of things that I thought were gonna be the thing or we're gonna like catch on and then like doesn't, and then I've had stuff that you like film and you're randomly that suddenly becomes an opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like who knows, man. But this was the Crossing Over Express was kind of a mix of those things where to give backstory, it's to this short film. It's basically my mom passed when I was 17, and for a myriad of reasons, I just don't have any video of her. I have like hardly any pictures. And a few years ago on my birthday, I get this text from a number I don't know that just says happy birthday with a YouTube link. And I click it and my heart stops. It's my mom on video, who, keep in mind, because I don't have any video, it's like I haven't seen this person or heard her voice or anything in 20 years.
Yeah, so your mental projection is probably different than seeing the physical.
Yeah, and you're just kind of like, it just put me in shock for a second. I click it, and it's literally this video where she's talking about how she wonders what I'd become, and she's proud of me, and it's just like the craziest minute and a half video. And I'm just kind of sitting there in shock, and finally, eventually, I text this number back, and it turns out it was a high school buddy's dad had been moving, and he found these VHS tapes, and it was something that like I think every parent must have recorded before some sort of event. Each parent like did their thing, and he found it and he cut it out, digitized it, and got my number. And
so there's multiple parents on the same tape.
I think so. He's not total. I haven't talked to him enough to be like, what all was this? But he basically let me know like he'd found this thing that parents recorded before some event, and he cut hers out and sent it to me. But yeah, it was crazy. And so, at first I didn't do anything with it. I didn't think about anything. And then I kind of was like, I should create something out of this. And at first I just jotted down this incredibly hallmarky, like the cheesiest melodramatic version of what a story could be. You know what I mean? Like, it was awful. And I was just like, this is fucking terrible. And then maybe a year later, I just kind of revisited. Every time I would tell the story about getting the video, people would always react. It would always get a good, like, oh shit, that's a crazy story.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
insane.
So after telling that story enough times, I was like, maybe I should revisit this. And then I kind of turned it into this, what the short ended up being, this kind of story about a company that claims to be able to raise the dead and give you that last conversation. I don't know. It's kind of crazy.
My first thought, because I don't understand like subtlety or subtext or meanings behind meanings. So my first question is, and I don't know if you have an answer to this or you just tell me to fuck off. What was the choice behind not letting your mom talk back to you under the curtain?
It was a combo of things. It's like, for those who haven't seen it, it's, a sheet rises and the guy doesn't necessarily think it's really his mom, and then he kind of goes along with it and has this very cathartic last conversation with his mom, but she can't talk back. When my mom actually passed away, she had cancer, and it was this thing where we kind of knew when it was going to happen. She'd been on life support, and they kind of told us, and so we all got this chance to like have one go in, and mine, when I went in, like the short, just turned into this sort of confession, where it was like, and where instead of going in and saying something positive or whatever, all mine were like apologizing for all the shit I did. And it turns out, I've talked to enough people since, that that's a very common thing. It's like, you get in those scenarios and you have no idea. You might even plan something, but then you get in there and you just become this like bubbling catastrophe, and you don't know what's going to come out. And a lot of times confessions come out. And so I just liked the idea of being able to like take this thing that I felt would resonate and other people may have experienced, and do it that way versus writing a two-hander conversation. I like this idea of this guy just getting 2 more minutes to say whatever he, didn't get a chance to say before. And then the sheet idea was just, a lot of it was us trying to think of interesting ways to tell the story that just weren't, a boring sort of like guy goes into a room and talks to his mom. So it was like, all right, at first I wrote it as an old weird 70s office, but even that was a combo of every office we found that looked interesting was too expensive. Yeah. And also we've seen stuff like that before, and then eventually we were like, I've never seen somebody go into the back of a moving truck and have like a weird experience, And then as we thought of that idea, we were like, and we could rent a moving truck for $300 and
park it somewhere that doesn't need a permit.
Just kind of like, it kind of became a mix of not being able to afford real locations and also like, oh, this is something we haven't seen before. I don't know.
Was the line from the actor outside that's like, doesn't have to be a confessional, was that ADR? Was that scripted? Like, was it an afterthought? Like,
no, that was scripted. That was scripted. She said it on the day. We also recorded her like separately, doing a bunch of variations of it. But and she was Dot Marie Jones is just the best. She's so authentic, and I don't know, couldn't have asked for a better cast in that situation. That was like the most important thing to me, was casting those two characters. Like even the other character, Ron Song, who's from Jury Duty. It was just, for me, it was like finding really distinctive people, you know what I mean? And I don't know, they're just the best. Yeah.
You have a history of working with the same talent in your films. Sort of.
Yeah.
I've noticed some reoccurring people.
Yeah, for sure.
Richard Riley.
Yeah. Richard Riley is the best.
Christopher Rodriguez Marquette have been reoccurring in some of your films.
Yeah.
When you find an actor that you like to work with, is it like, I know what I'm going to get out of that person, you kind of write with them in mind? Or is it from a producing standpoint, I know his quote, I can definitely get him on my movie?
I think it's less about that and more the first thing. It's like I think it's a combo of like when you work with or meet people who are both really good and they're just like the best to work with. You know what I mean? It's like and anything we make that I'm a part of actually getting say, it's a massive like no asshole policy. It's like I want to, especially on the stuff we make that's so small, whether it's a 1-day short or a feature, you're in the trenches with these people. You know what I mean? It's like you get one asshole and it's like the worst. Yeah. And to me, it's all about avoiding that at all costs. And so like those two guys you just mentioned, Chris Marquette and Richard Reilly are just two guys that are amazing actors. They bring it. And they also just could not be nicer. Like Richard Reilly, it's Richard Reilly is the funniest sort of story. He really inspires me a lot. If you look up Richard Reilly, he's had 500 credits or some insane thing. Yeah. And he will tell you, I've had drinks with him where he will talk openly about how in some ways that's been a detriment to his career. Like people will see it as, oh, you just do everything, and so he's not getting opportunities in TV or in higher budget things. But when you talked about why he does all these things and why he is like the go-to, like you pay him a small amount of money and he'll come out and do your thing, it's because that guy loves acting. That guy loves being on set. He loves the whole process of making something. And if it's not like he won't say yes to everything, but if it's not awful and he gets to go be on set and watch people make a movie and he gets to act, even if it pays $200, he's like, I'd rather be doing this than just like being at home doing nothing. I'm 75 years old. It's like, this is what I love doing. Yeah. And when you work with him, it's crazy because he's older. He's, been doing this for so long that you will never work with anybody that is more prepared than Richard Reilly. Like you could give that guy at 70 whatever years old a 3-page monologue and that guy won't miss a word. Wow. Like he will come so prepared. It's crazy. He'll make you look awful. Like I love working with Richard, but I'm also like, Jesus Christ, Richard, you like know my lines, you know?
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I stayed away from acting. It's my memorization problem.
Yeah.
But when I AD a film, I've got,
you like know everything that's going on.
Every line in my head. And I'm even looking at Scripty when I see a thing, and I'm like,
did he pick up that?
I'm like,
nope,
right
hand?
He missed the yeah. And they're like, no, you got. And then the day we wrap, it purges. I have no idea. What
yeah. What's the movie about?
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Speaking of filmmaking, let's take it back just a little bit. Eventually, I want to get to overnight success and how many people have called you lucky in the last 6 months. In fact, let's talk about it right now. Like leading up to the Crossing Over Express, you had made what I counted to be at least 10 or 11 shorts and 2 feature-length films.
We had done the first stuff I started making was 2012 with Will Ferrell's like Funny or Die thing, and I made a lot of stuff with them, more than that because they're not all like shorts that would actually be on IMDb. I just made so many sketches and like stuff for Funny or Die, and then on one of those Funny or Die videos, I worked with somebody and met somebody who he was a director, producer. We just like worked really well together, and we wanted to make our first feature. Our first feature was done as indie as it gets. I'm talking like credit cards, borrowing money, friends investing. It was just like all that stuff. And it's an interesting thing because that premiered at Tribeca and CAA repped it. And at that point you feel like, well, I get a Marvel movie now, right?
Right.
This is just how it happens. Yeah. Like now I write Jurassic Universe or whatever. And that didn't happen. It did get us agents and stuff like that. That is a huge step in a career, but it definitely didn't happen at that point the way that we weren't in a bidding war. You know what I mean? Like I woke up the next day after like the greatest night of our premiere at Tribeca, great after party. I just had the best night, and I wake up and there's like an awful review in Variety. It was so bad. And it was like maybe to this day the most I've ever had like a high to low moment.
Yeah, the swings.
And I'm hungover as shit. You know what I mean? Like I wake up and I'm like, what happened? What a great night. And then you just read this thing and it's like Dennis Harvey, I remember the name, hates the movie. Anyway.
Where's Dennis now?
Yeah, probably destroying some other filmmaker's livelihood. No.
Well, they say those who can't do teach. So I think the same thing about film critics. It's like there's a little bit of negativity and even a positive review.
Yeah.
Where there's just a little snark where they just feel like they could have made it better.
Yeah.
And nobody, like, I feel like this when I make a schedule for a shoot. It took me 6 hours to plan this shooting day out. And the grip looks at it and goes, well, why isn't lunch at 11?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I have a mix. Like, I appreciate film criticism in certain regards, but at the same time, I do go back and reread that Man in the Arena poem like way too often. You know what I mean?
Refresh my memory.
Man in the Arena, I forgot who it's by. It's like by a very famous author, but the Man in the Arena is like a short poem that's basically like, pay no attention to the critic. Mm-hmm. The man in the arena who gives everything. This is not it, but it's along the lines of like who fights and does the blood and whatever. The man who watches and judges him does not matter. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like the lion doesn't care about the opinions of the sheep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I love that one. And for some reason, I feel compelled to tell you this street joke about the old bull and the young bull, but it has nothing to do.
I'm looking forward to this.
So this has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's a street joke, not my joke. Old bull, young bull, top of the hill. Young bull says to the old bull, hey, look at all those cows down there. Let's run down there and fuck some of them. Uh-huh. And the old bull goes, let's walk down there and fuck them all.
That's hilarious.
It's just lends itself to like the experience of like being around for a long time.
Yeah.
But I love the journey of like when people see like how viral your short went. Didn't personally read any of these comments that were like, oh, overnight success. But like I have personally experienced some opportunities where people are like, oh, you're lucky, or you got that out of nowhere. And like, for example, I'm one of the house photographers at the Hollywood Improv.
Yeah.
I shot 300 shows for free during Pandy for them to ask me to do that. And they don't really pay that great.
Yeah, yeah.
I love the job. I'm not trying to quit. But people don't see the free work or the hustle before the explosion. Can you talk a little bit about like what your journey was with like your version of working for free?
Well, and I still would. I think it's a matter of like, to me, especially when you've done a decent amount of stuff, it's kind of like, it's all about, does the thing you're going to work on, do you either just want to do it because it sounds really fun, or does it benefit you in some way? Sometimes that's monetarily, if somebody's like, I'm going to pay you a bunch of money to write the script. Sometimes it's, hey, we'll do it for that person because they might 5 years from now be the one to hire you to do this thing or whatever. And so, again, Fear Inc. was 2016. The first thing I ever made was 2012. And really all of those things were little opportunities, but they never were like a breakout smash success. They would all be like little victories where maybe more people would get to know you, more reps would like what you did and want to put their client in your next thing. It was just like these little things. But it was kind of funny because the last 2 or 3 years is really, in my mind, when I've like kind of got my stride or figured out a little bit of like what I'm best at. I think for all the time before that, I'm just kind of like throwing stuff against the wall, things that I would like, but I don't know. The last couple of years, I've really honed in on what I think I'm good at and writing stories that I think are my voice and figuring out what that means. Even as an actor, it's like I hadn't acted in 9 years and I got back into it in 2020. And even with that, I've kind of just now, the last couple of years, figured out where do I fit best? Like when I'm auditioning, what are other people seeing? And like, where do I, like, I'm great as, I think I'm pretty good as a funny character on a serious show. So like, you put me on your hour-long drama as like a kind of dry humor, I can do really well. I'm not a sitcom guy. There's so many guys, there's so many comics and people at just improv guys who are on and they are so good. That's not me. I'm not that funny. It's like, and I think figuring that out was really beneficial to me because even as a writer, my brother-in-law, who has like my favorite comedy troupe in LA, they're called Lost Moon Radio, and I mean that not even being biased. They're like my favorite comedy troupe in LA, and to
Improv?
No, they're like sketch.
Oh, okay.
And to me, he's like a comic genius, and I look at how that guy writes comedy, and I can very honestly say I'm not that good. He's so much better at writing comedy than I am. And I think it kind of took a little bit of that to figure out my voice as a writer. Like, what am I good at? You know what I mean? So I really pushed way more into that, like, Coen brothers sort of like, I'm going to write serious stakes stuff that happens to have funny characters in it, and they can be funny and whatever, but I'm not trying to write the next great half-hour comedy, because I think there's a lot of guys that are just like way better at that than I am.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting because the last few years we have had these things that like start to move, and you see them, you know, this producer comes on board and this director's attached, and you're kind of, for us, it's like I'm starting to feel like, you know, maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, it was like, all right, I've got these handful of projects that are like really getting some momentum. And then that short comes out. And the short, it does kind of blow up. And all of a sudden, we're like meeting with all the agents and we're meeting all these producers about the short and stuff. And then one of those projects that had already been set up with Mike Flanagan, like a horror producer, months beforehand, gets announced. So it's like the short comes out. Everyone's talking about the short. A month later, it's like Mike Flanagan to produce Epilogue. You know what I mean?
Which you already knew.
Which this was 6 months ago. You know what I mean? And before the short was even finished. But then, dude, the amount of Twitter comments and stuff that are like, "Go make your short." You know, and granted, I fully buy into that and think you should go make your short. But it's like, it wasn't like we made the short and suddenly Mike Flanagan was like, "Oh shit, do you have any other scripts?"
Yeah, what else you got,
It's
kid?
like, we've been building this for years. You know what I mean? And we have another couple things that I think, you know, feel very positive on. You don't want to jinx it, but like, I feel positive are going to move forward. And I think it's going to be interesting because it's like those things happen. And I think it's only going to add to the sort of like, where the fuck did these guys come from? And it's going to be like, dude, we've been like literally in the trenches for 12 years.
Yeah.
Almost 20. You've been out here for almost 20 years, been writing for 12 years. But I don't think it's going to be seen that way. I think it's going to be like, these guys made one short film.
Yeah.
And had 4 projects get announced.
Yes, and now they get their Marvel movie.
Yeah, exactly.
When you say we, have you had the same producing writing partner for the whole time, or have you worked with multiple people?
No, I worked a lot early on with a great director named Vince Michelli, and he somewhere in the pandemic, we still like want to find something else to do together, but like he had stuff going on, and then I was kind of solo, and then I started writing with another buddy, Tanner Thomason, who he and I have written most of our stuff since.
Is he the bartender in Faith-Based?
Yep.
Okay.
And so he and I write. We'll still both have our own, like, you know, stuff that he's just working on or I'm just working on, but we write together a lot, and that's who I made the Crossing Over Express with.
Just dialing back just a couple points ago to finding your voice as an actor, was it a different journey to find your voice as a writer? Or do you feel like you already kind of touched on that? Were there two separate journeys, or did one hand wash the other?
I think they're the exact. I think they're kind of I think it's more as me as a person. You know what I mean? It was like, even as every now and again I'll produce, and it's like I think the first thing that really got me there was actually not even something that I wrote and directed. It was a thing I produced called Your Lucky Day that came out on Netflix a few months ago, and it was like, that was a writer-director named Dan Brown. And I remember how this happened because when the guy who I'd been making stuff with before kind of couldn't do it for a little bit, and I kind of said, you know what, I'm going to focus on writing and acting, and I'm not going to produce something for somebody else unless it's something that I'm just like going to be upset that I missed out on. Mm-hmm. And I thought that would happen like in a year or two, and then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks later, I get this call from a casting director who I knew, and she basically says, I'm working with this director, this writer-director. I think you guys would like really, really gel. I think you should produce this movie. And I was like, I don't really want to do that right now for somebody else. And she was like, just watch his short. So I watched his short, and I was like, this is fucking great. So
what's the name of that short?
Your Lucky Day.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
He had made another short too. I forgot the name of it actually. She sent me both, but they were both great.
Right.
And he had made this short 11 years ago. And now he's just now trying to figure out how to make it as a feature. And I read the script, and I was like, let me get a drink with him. So it was like right off the bat. But that was a good example of like, okay, I felt like this is the space I want to be in. It was very like, it's a very high stakes movie. Funny characters are in it. It just does this, like, rides this line really nice. And so I think figuring that out was both as an actor and a writer and just a creator. You know, I think it's just important to figure out, I don't know, it's hard to figure out, I guess, what your voice is. But for me, it literally took 17 years. So,
yeah,
you know.
How do you decide when you're writing something whether or not to put yourself in it?
I think it's a little bit of like, how drawn am I to it? and how much am I going to be a problem in getting that made? You know what I mean? So it's like with the Crossing Over Express, it was so personal to me. I knew right off the bat I wanted to do that. It was about my mom. That was like pretty sad. And then it was also like it's a short, so it doesn't really matter. There's no money involved. As we develop the feature, that questions come up quite a bit if I'm going to play the role or not. And I kind of said I don't think I want. I think if it were to get made on a really low budget, which I would do, like if nobody would really like finance it on a real movie level. By real movie, I just mean like millions of dollars. And we said, you know what? This other guy will do it for $300,000. Let's go make the movie. Then I'll probably want to play the role at that point. But for the most part, if it gets made how I think it's going to get made, I'd rather just focus on directing. It worked on the short. I was able to like direct and be in it, but on a feature, I just think I'd be spread too thin. I'd rather have, see what Sam Rockwell does with the character. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Would you? Have you ever had to rewrite because you got an ideal character or cast member? Have you ever had to rewrite something to accommodate their age? Like if somebody else was like Sam Rockwell, or I was thinking actually Sam Elliott when you said Sam Rockwell. That's a lot older than you.
Yeah.
But the mustache to me was the connection.
It'd be great too.
Yeah, but like he could play someone looking back at their life, and then it would cut to you being a young.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I have not had to rewrite based on a casting, but I would happily do that. I mean, I think that's fun. It's like if the right person came along and we pitched a thing recently that's like a show, and in our pitch the guy is like 50, but it's one of these roles that like really could range from 35 to 70, and I just think you're kind of writing it based off of that, whoever that actor is. So it's like if it's Sam Elliott, you're making him move a little slower. You know what I mean? You're doing these things versus
it's not a running chase scene.
Yeah, but the guy's 38 years old and John Bernthal. You know what I mean? That guy can do it.
Yeah. Earlier you mentioned a first draft that you'd put away, and then it came back to it a year or so later. What's your process? Do you write every day, and how do you pick what to write on per day?
I don't know that I write every day, but I write most days, and I I think I'll have a lot of projects at various stages that I'm like trying to juggle a little bit, but on simply a writing thing, I like to have one at a time because I like to finish, and I think that getting to the end is the hardest part, and it's the thing that the majority of writer friends struggle with the most, where it's like everyone's got a lot of great ideas, and everyone can like start it and say, oh, this is a great start, and then everyone around page 35 becomes like frustrated and so for me it's more like, can I have such a detailed over the top outline that it's all figured out? Yeah. And so then there's like no risk of me getting stuck at page 50.
Right.
That's my, like, the people who can just free write and say fade in blows my mind.
Me too.
It's incredible.
Misty wrote her book that way.
Really?
Yes. Oh. She started on page 1 and I was like, you got to outline this thing or you're never going to get to the end. And she was like, watch this. And she got a little bit of sickness last year. She had some time off. She was like, she wrote 200 pages in like 60 days or something.
Oh my God. I would not be able to do it.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple screenwriters that do that, and I honestly just don't understand it. Because for me, I would be 100% the person that got to like page 50 and got a little bored because we're not introing the story and we're not at the end and we're just kind of in the middle. And I'd be like, what happens here? I'd be so out of no.
Do you change your writing setup or your space per project? There's that famous story. I don't know if it was Cameron Crowe or whatever. He was writing, whoever wrote like Jurassic Park and The Abyss and whatever at the same time. I'm getting those movies wrong. He wrote 3 bangers at once. It's not Cameron Crowe.
Michael Crichton?
Who? The Almost Famous guy.
That's Cameron Crowe. Yeah.
Is it Cameron Crowe?
Yeah.
I think I'm getting this story mixed up because I've had a lot of caffeine and nicotine today. But he had 3 desks. So he had one for Aliens. Who wrote Aliens? I don't mean to put
directed by James Cameron.
James Cameron.
Yeah, okay.
So he was doing, I think it was Terminator and The Abyss, and he had 3 different desks because he had all of his notes. One was a typewriter, one was a computer. Like, he had 3 separate spaces, so he could like, I'm in this headspace, I'm in this room, I'm writing this movie.
I wish I could do anything like that. Honestly, becoming a parent has been, and just simply in terms of writing, has been like, it's weirdly been the best thing the worst part about it is like, because I don't have like a space. Like I'd love to, whatever, down the road, hopefully soon, have like an actual office or a space to go to. I don't have that right now, so I'm like finding kitchen space. You know what I mean? I'm at the kitchen counter. Right. I'm at the whatever. I'm waking up at 5:30 in the morning before the kids wake up to try to work. I'm staying up or I'm doing the opposite, and I'm staying up after they're in bed. Like, I'm finding weird times to write, and I have no set place or anything like that.
Has that affected your writing? And how did you write before kids?
Before kids, it was still, it was like I'd have an actual space because we had a room in the house that was like kind of an office space that's now a bedroom. And I would just write during the day. You know what I mean? It would just be kind of what I did. But now I'm just all over the place. But where kids have been the best thing, and this is the funniest thing. You have kids? I can't remember.
No.
Okay, the funniest thing about having kids and talking to like any of my collaborators that don't have kids is I am more productive now by a mile than I was 5 years ago. And I think that's because I have so much less time. When I log on, I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like I'm so focused. Like those 2 hours, I'm so focused. I'm knocking it out. Whereas I think before I just kind of had a lot of time, but I would still somehow be a little all over the place.
You're not taking TikTok breaks in those 2
Well,
hours.
dude, I give my writing partner, he's single, doesn't have kids, and I give him shit all the time because I'm like, he's always talking about how bored he is. He's like, doesn't have anything to do. He's like, has a whole day free. And I'm like, how am I knocking out as many pages as you?
Yeah.
Like, you should have written 4 books in the time that I finished this first draft of art. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. My best friend, who actually used to be my drummer, you may have met him. His name's Al. He works from 6 in the morning till midnight every day. He was like, you want to find your hustle? Find out that your wife's pregnant. He's like, those 9 months or probably 7.5 months from when you don't have a kid to when you do have a kid will be the most productive because you're like, I'm squirreling away funds and like getting my hustle together.
I think it's just like I think the time thing just factors in so much where, it just made those hours. So I know I don't have that many. So I'm like, well, fuck, I got 2 hours. It's like, I gotta be productive, you know?
Yeah. I feel like I missed my window because I'm 45 now. But my partner and I right now, I say partner because I'm in Los Angeles and everybody says that, but I'm dating a woman.
Yeah.
Wink, wink to the camera. We think that when we get our little plan set up, we're going to adopt whatever the median age of all of our friends' kids are.
Just to be like in the same boat.
If they're 8 to 12, we're going to just go get a couple of 10-year-olds. 9 or 10-year-old and be like,
jump in.
Yeah, we didn't have to change any diapers.
Yeah. Pro is you're going to miss all the hard shit at the beginning.
Yeah.
Con is you're going to dive right into like 3 years away from teenager. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
And it would be tough to just go pick up a street kid and be like, hey, live in my house.
Although it is Los Angeles. Who knows, man?
Yeah.
I don't know what's out there.
It would just be rough to like get a kid voluntarily and then have them scream at you like, I hate you. You're not my dad. It's like,
well, get back out there, I guess.
You know what? The door's open. Help yourself back to the streets if you
Good
want
luck.
to. I wrote these questions down, and this could kind of be a choose your own adventure book, knowing that we have about 20 minutes left before we got to get you out of here. I think people are interested in like how long things take. Like, how long does it? I have 5 total. How long does it take to write a movie? And you don't have to answer all of these, but how long does it take to write a movie? How long does it take to sell a movie? How long does it take to raise the money? How long does it take to shoot a movie? How long does it take to edit a movie? Like, I think a lot of people have misconceptions, and there isn't one answer because I've made a couple of films myself.
Yeah,
it's how long, it's how much money you have, or how long. You know, it's like everything is different. Some projects I'm sure you wrote 12 years ago, and they're just now getting money or a producer. But does that resonate with you in any way? Does that make you want to say any words?
Yeah. I mean, it's like for writing something, I mean, everyone's going to be a little bit different here. I used to be a little more of a get the draft out as fast as possible and then go back and fix it. Now I've changed a little bit over the last few years, and now I go into more of like hyper detailed outline that probably takes me a month or 2. I get feedback on it from like people who I trust to be like, read this outline, tell me, give thoughts so that feels like it's in a good place. And then the actual script probably takes me somewhere in the like, I don't know, 6 weeks to 3 month world, depending on getting that first draft out. But to be fair, that draft now, I'm putting more time in and am making it closer to a decent first draft versus just like a vomit draft that's probably awful.
Would you say your first draft now is like your third or fourth draft 10 or 20 years ago?
Yeah, I'd say even 3 years ago, because I would just try to rush to the end before, and now I'm kind of like paying attention to each scene and trying to make it good.
Yeah, it's kind of like the we'll fix it in post, but in writing. Now you just
do it
on set.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that, and that has worked better to me. Like then your first draft is like not bad. It's decent, and somebody reads it and whatever. But and then to get it made, I think that all just depends. It's like so much of it goes into the gatekeepers, be it an indie film where you got to find an investor or a studio movie where you have to get somebody to buy it. But we've had stuff happen where like, we finish the draft, it goes out, a producer comes on board, they spend a year trying to get an actor, trying to get whatever, doesn't happen, then they give it back to you and they're like, we tried, and then you might take it to somebody else who then like takes it on and gives it a shot, and you never know. It's like it is, and I think the easier timeline is once you do get the green light. So somebody says, hey, we want to make this movie, or we want to help give you money to make this movie. I would say the process from starting to film the movie to the movie like premiering at a festival or something is often around a year. It could be a year and a half, it could be 2 years, it could be 9 months, but like you're going to take a couple months of pre-production, you're going to take a month or two to shoot the movie, you're going to take however many months of editing it and coloring it and doing sound and music, and then you're going to take the time to wait for festivals to watch it, accept it, probably reject it over and over again, and also you never know. It's like Your Lucky Day was rejected by Sundance, South by Southwest, Toronto, all the heavy hitters. It was rejected by CAA, by William Morris, etc., and it became the number 4 movie on Netflix and held in the top 10 for a long time. It's like you just don't know.
Does that make it sweeter?
It does. It was. I mean, at least makes you kind of like, okay, there's an audience. It might not have been those 12 people that watched it, but like there's an audience. The same with The Crossing Over Express. The Crossing Over Express didn't get into Sundance. It didn't get into any of the ones that you dream of. It didn't get into Cannes, South by Southwest, Fantastic Fest, where I was an alumni, Tribeca, where I was an alumni. It didn't get into any of those, and it became the best thing that's ever happened to me by far, career-wise. Has definitely been seen by the most people by far, career-wise, and has just had the most positive reaction in my entire career. And it was rejected by all of those. So it's just like, nobody knows anything.
Yeah. Because eventually the suits come around and they go, we were wrong about Luke's project on this and this and this, and he won. Let's listen to Luke about what he's got going next.
You hope so. But yeah. I hope so. But I also am very much of the mindset of like, you just have to keep making the thing over and over again and like not care too much, because, and festivals, to their credit and like to be totally fair, like take Sundance as an example. You're bummed out because you didn't get into Sundance or whatever. Dude, Sundance gets 13,000 submissions. But of those 13,000, it's not 6,500 shorts and 6,500 features. It's probably 11,000 shorts and 2,000 features. And so, and they're going to program 90 shorts. And so that's 90 out of 11,000. And they're trying to program it to make a curated program, whatever each like themed shorts block is. And so much of it doesn't come down to like your short being good. They're all good. Anybody that's even like being considered is good.
Yeah.
It just has to fit so many things and affect certain people. And
yeah, it's not like the Venice Beach Film Festival where you pay your $65 and you get to submit. And
yeah. Yeah, and it's like, and to be fair, you can't let festivals get you down so much, because there's also crazy statistics, which like, to be fair, when you like learn this and you can, in my mind, kind of embrace this is what it is, I'm okay with it. And like, we just got to play the fucking game. Because like, as an example, I think it was 2 years ago, it got announced that of all the feature films in the U.S. competition of Sundance, in the U.S. category, only one of all of them did not have an alumni who was either a director, producer, or writer on the movie. So that means, if any, maybe one, but probably zero randomly submitted to Sundance. Just got on Film Freeway, submitted it, and got in. Every one of those people had alumni involved who I guarantee emailed the programmer and said, hey, can you check this out? I'm an alumni. You know what I mean? Yeah. And those, just when you learn it's that political, like when we played Tribeca, I didn't meet one single feature filmmaker at Tribeca who had just submitted. Every single one, including us, was repped by, the movie was repped by a CAA or a William Morris or whoever. We were CAA, who basically called the program and said, watch this. And a week and a half later, they were like, Tribeca loves it. You know what I mean? That's not how, it's like, it's all political, you know?
So the theme that I'm sensing over the last, over our conversation is that something that my old business partner and mentor taught me was Los Angeles is about relationships.
Yeah.
And I think it coincides with the amount of time it takes to get good at your craft is also the same amount of time that it takes to foster enough relationships so that by the time you're good at your craft, you can play at the big table with the big boys with the big money.
Yeah, and I think there's no harm in it being a networking and relationships thing. That's not to say it's all sort of like, you know, just people doing each other favors. It's more like you have to meet these people. Like, you still have to make the thing that stands out and works.
Yeah.
Like, the Crossing Over Express was not made with like connections or anything, but it did work as a short enough that those people wanted to watch it. And now when we go to make something else, I can name 30 producers that we met with about the Crossing Over Express that we'll take the next thing to, and we're not cold to them. They're like, oh, the guys that made the Crossing Over Express. So it's all like relationships, and then they're hopefully going to be the ones that call Sundance or call South by Southwest or whatever. So it's all relationships, but it's still going out and like making the thing yourself or writing the thing yourself that stands out to get those relationships.
Right.
You know,
creating your own opportunities.
Yeah, and it all takes that much time. Like I look at like the last 10 years of what you called overnight success, and it's like I can pinpoint so many things back to like this person who watched our short in 2014 that then helped us cast somebody in our no budget feature in 2015 that 6 years later is a higher up here and watched the Crossing Over Express and had us meet with this person. And it's like all of it is a mixture of creating content that you are excited about and you want to see with meeting people and having relationships. And that just can't, it's like when people come out here and they say, I'm going to give it 5 years. It's like such a joke because it like...
You might as well go home now.
Yeah, you might as well just go home now. Like unless you're 17 and you're going to just get lucky getting on some sitcom or whatever, it's like you have to be in it for such a... You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me when I hear that.
No, I totally resonate with everything you're saying. Because I restarted my career at 40 when I wanted to switch over to do comedy.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'll just take all these other skills that translate from my directing and AD career.
It's fine.
And it'll make me a fucking comedian overnight. And I'm like, well, I didn't become an AD overnight. I didn't become a director overnight.
Yeah.
But now I think I can just be one of the best comedians in the world in under a year.
Yeah.
And I'm learning the hard way that I spent so much time trying to find a shortcut in comedy.
Sure.
That if I had just done the right thing,
just been showing up 6 days a week.
That's right.
Yeah.
Then I would be further along than I am now, and I've
It's
had
true.
some really amazing opportunities and gotten to tour with some guys. But
You're not wrong though. I mean, it is. You're right. It's like it just takes. I don't know. For me, it's most of the people I know who have had real success in any of these things are the people who just like grinded it out so long, and everyone else moved away, and everybody else. You know what I mean? It's just like, and you're meeting the right people who
you can outwork talent.
You can outwork talent for sure. I have a lot of friends who, like, I mean, I have one buddy who now works all the time. He's a series regular on multiple shows, and he's maybe the best actor I know. Okay, but this guy doesn't have his first like real TV credit, you know, until he's like 38, and even that is like one scene in a thing, and now he's probably 53, 54 in the last 7 years, 8 years, this guy works nonstop. The last 4 or 5 years in his late 40s into mid 50s is when he's a series regular making series regular money. But it's like that's starting at 48 when he started at 21.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that's, you know, a long time of like kind of hustling.
Yeah. I think to put a pin on it before we wrap up, this could sound like if you're younger, if you're in your 20s or 30s, this could sound like a couple of disgruntled, old, almost 50-year-old dudes going like, "Oh, you got to put in the work." But I think it's a story of hope. I think it's like if you're not where you want to be right now, just keep grinding, keep making that stuff because it does work out. Worked out for you, worked out for me, it works out for a lot of people. You just got to hang on.
I don't think it is. The reason I don't think it's a jaded negative thing is because I'm so positive on it right now. And granted, I'm in a good place in the sense of like the last 6 months have been very exciting and have had these opportunities come. But I will say I've had so many things happen recently that fully, not reinforced. I didn't like they've opened my perspective. Like, oh, this can happen. Like certain, even just like small things. Like I did a small role on a show a year and a half ago, and they pulled me back in for multiple episodes of the next season that I just shot. And that's one of those things that's just like, oh, that can happen. You hear those stories, and it can happen. Like somebody, whoever it is, some writer on that show was like, what if we brought back this guy who was in one scene and made him in 3 episodes? You know what I mean? And it's like that just kind of stuff for me for a long time was like, yeah, bullshit. You hear about it, but that person knew somebody and they knew somebody at the showrunner or whatever who helped him out. It's like, I don't know anybody at the show. You know what I mean? It was a completely random audition for one scene in one episode. And like the same kind of things happened where like I've been auditioning for a new show this fall and they brought me in twice. Second time they bring me in, I get pinned for it, which means it's like me and somebody else. Take the pin out, didn't get it.
So you got to fight that guy to the death.
So I slid his tires. That guy did not make it. They called me an hour before the shoot. They were like, "Can Luke still come?" So I don't get it. Then I get a third audition. I don't get it. And they say to my agent, they say, just want to let you know, we really do want to find something for Luke on this show. We think he's like a great fit for this show. I'm like, yeah, okay. Bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And granted, they have not found something for me yet. But I will say, the year starts back up. Monday this week, I get 4th audition for the show. I have no idea if I'll get it or not, but I truly believe that casting director is actively like keeping me in mind,
advocating for you.
They're saying, what if we tried Luke on this one? You know what I mean? And they might send it to the showrunner who says that's not the guy, we like this guy, and it might happen again. But it is positive to feel like you do this long enough that the people know. I don't know. I just I think to me it's all hope. It's more just a matter of like so many of the overnight success stories that you're going to hear are people who it took 20 years to get there. And I think that if you're 25 doing this right now and you're frustrated, it's okay to be frustrated, but just know that like it's a 20-year game potentially, you know?
Yeah. That I produce a podcast for an actor who got some really early on success. And then in the like not low point of his career, but you know, after like he was young and like the fire had worn off, he gets a guest star on a show that went 15 seasons. His first guest star is season 7. Then they were like, oh, and then they made him a reoccurring. He ended up doing like 12 or 15 appearances on this 15 Supernatural, right? But now show's wrapped, whatever, it's dead and gone, but he gets to go all the cons and sign the autographs, dude. And it's a second career now that he. And his career's coming back. He's working on a ton of stuff now, but
dude, that's exactly right. And you never know. It's like you do those sci-fi horror genre projects, and it's like it's its own little thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think there's a lot of hope out there. You just have to be willing to like stick with it, and you have to be willing to like, if you can, make your own stuff, because it's like that's the one thing I've found that you have control over. You can't have control over if people like it or not, but like you can go make shit. You know what I mean? Like we live in an age right now where you could be like, oh, no one's casting me in anything. No one's hiring me to write stuff. Let's just take that camera and that microphone and go make a weird fucking little short in this hallway. Yeah. And you never know. You know?
I feel guilty about the amount of gear that I own every day. Because I think about like a hungry kid that just wrote something. He's like, I guess I have to shoot this on my phone. And I got this shit sitting in here literally doing nothing. And half of me wants to be like, come on, kid, you can borrow this whenever you want to.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, but then if they borrow it and they mess it up, then I don't have my stuff. That's a whole nother conversation. That's just my own personal guilt of like wanting to help people make their shit, but I gotta get to a different place before I can start executive producing 22-year-olds sketches.
Yeah, I think so. But it's but the idea is still there that like, you know, you can buy a camera like that now or borrow or rent a camera like that now for not a lot of money.
Right,
and
$100 a day or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like the key is just to figure out like what do I want to make, and then just be like, what do I have the ability to make?
Right.
You know.
In contrast to when we first started, film was $1 a foot, and a 435 needed a loader, and you needed an experienced DP.
Well, dude, even when I first came out, which is like a little after that, but it was like I remember being on like the set of somebody's short or something, and they had a what was the first big red one, and they'd have a red one, and you would be like, okay, shit, this is gonna look good. You know what I mean? You were like, they brought.
We got one lens, but we got
yeah, but I'm gonna look good for that frame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it turns out that like downloading that footage on like a USB 1.0 took longer than reloading a mag.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I did a music video one time. The artist showed up and just pulls a red one body out of the trunk with no case, nothing. It was just rolling around in the trunk, no lenses, no batteries. He's like, "Here, y'all shoot it on this." And we already had our other camera with all the. I won't say who the artist is.
Yeah,
it was hip hop though.
Yeah, hilarious.
Luke Barnett.
Dude, good to talk to you.
You too, man. How can everybody follow your work and watch your stuff? Is it lukebarnett.com?
I should have a lukebarnett.com. I don't have that. I have I'm on the old Twitter at Luke Barnett, on Instagram at I am Luke Barnett. You can watch the Crossing Over Express pinned to the top of my Twitter, or I think it's actually on YouTube now as well. But Twitter was where it kind of took off.
Is it your YouTube channel? Most of the people that are going to see this are on YouTube right now.
Okay, it's on Short of the Week.
Okay.
YouTube, which is if you've never been on Short of the Week, it's a very cool YouTube channel.
Yeah, that does sound like you could go down a very long rabbit hole of watching
it's
awesome shorts.
It's literally like a lot of the best shorts that I've ever made all in one thing. It's awesome.
I could talk to you for hours, but you have a dentist appointment or something that you got to get to. So I didn't mean to put that on you. I actually have to go as well. Thank you for your time.
Dude, love you, dude.
Love you too, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, man.
We'll see you next time, everybody.